My sister smiled at the police officers and said, "She won't press charges. We're family, right?" Her voice was honey sweet, the same voice she'd used our entire lives to get out of trouble. She was standing in her doorway in yoga pants and a cashmere sweater, looking every bit the innocent victim of some misunderstanding. The officers shifted uncomfortably. I watched from behind them, where I'd been waiting in the unmarked car with Detective Martinez. Amber couldn't see me yet. She was too busy performing. "This is clearly a mistake," she continued, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "My sister and I are very close. Whatever she reported, I'm sure we can work it out as a family." That's when I stepped out of the car, walked up the driveway, stood directly behind the officer so she could finally see my face. My copper hair was pulled back. My hands were steady. My voice didn't shake. "Wrong," I said. Her smile disappeared. Actually disappeared, like someone had reached into her face and pulled it out. For the first time in 30 years, my sister Amber had nothing to say. The officer on the right turned to his partner. "That's her. That's the victim." "Amber Mitchell," Detective Martinez said, stepping forward with the warrant. "You're under arrest for identity theft, credit card fraud, and felony financial crimes totaling $93,427. The handcuffs clicked. I'd waited 18 months to hear that sound. Let me take you back, because this story isn't really about credit cards or police reports. It's about learning that some people will take everything you have, your money, your future, your name, and still expect you to protect them. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to love you, if you've ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-preservation, this story is for you. Amber had always taken things. I never thought she'd take my name. Growing up in suburban Ohio, I was the quiet sister, the one with the copper hair that everyone said looked like our grandmother's, the one who got good grades and followed rules and never caused problems. Amber was 3 years older, blonde like our mother, and she moved through the world like it owed her something. By the time I was old enough to notice, the pattern was already set. When I was 7 and Amber was 10, she took my birthday money. $40 from Grandma Ruth, still in the card with the dancing elephants. I'd hidden it in my sock drawer, planning to buy a telescope I'd seen at the Science Museum. 2 days later, it was gone. When I told Mom, she said I must have misplaced it. When I found the receipt for a new Barbie dream house in Amber's trash can, Mom said Amber had earned that money babysitting. I knew she hadn't. Amber never babysat. But I was 7, and nobody believed the quiet sister over the charming one. When I was 12 and Amber was 15, she took my spot on the swim team. I'd been practicing for months, was one of the fastest in my age group, had my heart set on the regional competition. Amber decided 2 weeks before tryouts that she wanted to swim too. She made the team easily. She was good at everything she tried. And suddenly, there wasn't room for both Mitchell sisters. "You understand, honey," Mom said. "Amber's older. This is her last chance before high school gets too demanding." I understood. I understood that my achievements would always be sacrificed for hers. When I was 16 and Amber was 19, she took my boyfriend. Not that Derek was much of a boyfriend. We'd been dating for 3 months, holding hands at movies, the innocent stuff of high school romance. But Amber came home from her freshman year of college for Thanksgiving, met Derek at dinner, and by Christmas, they were sleeping together. When I found out and confronted her, she laughed. "He was going to dump you anyway," she said. "I just sped things up. You should thank me." I didn't thank her. I stopped speaking to her for 6 months. Mom said I was being dramatic. The worst part wasn't any individual theft. It was the pattern. The way Amber would take something, get caught, and then somehow make it my fault for being upset. The way our parents always found excuses. Amber's going through a phase. Amber's under a lot of pressure. You know how your sister is. You need to be the bigger person. Being the bigger person, I learned, meant being the smaller one. It meant shrinking myself so Amber had room to expand. It meant accepting that my things, my achievements, my relationships were always provisional, always subject to her claim. By the time I graduated high school, I'd learned to protect myself through distance. I went to college in Michigan, far enough that Amber couldn't drop by unannounced. I studied nursing because I wanted to help people, and because it was a career Amber would never want. Too much hard work, not enough glamour. I dated carefully, never introducing anyone to my family until I was sure the relationship was solid. I kept my financial information private. I thought I'd built walls high enough to keep her out. I was wrong. After college, I moved to Columbus for a nursing job at a children's hospital. Good salary, good benefits, good future. I was 24 years old and finally building the life I'd always wanted. Amber was in Cleveland, working in pharmaceutical sales, living the lifestyle she'd always craved. Expensive apartment, designer clothes, vacation she posted on Instagram with captions about living her best life. We saw each other at holidays, made polite conversation, maintained the fiction of sisterhood. I thought we'd reached a detente. I thought the taking was over. At 26, I fell in love. His name was Marcus, a physical therapist I met through work. Kind eyes, steady hands, the kind of man who remembered what you said and followed up weeks later. We dated for a year before moving in together. He proposed on our anniversary, a small diamond that meant more than any rock because he'd picked it himself. We started planning a wedding, started talking about buying a house, started imagining a future. That's when I found it. The house. A 1920s bungalow on a tree-lined street in German Village, the historic neighborhood I'd dreamed about since moving to Columbus. 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, a backyard with a massive oak tree that must have been there since before the house was built. The front porch had those classic white columns. The windows still had the original wavy glass that made the light inside look different, softer, like something from another era. It needed work. The kitchen was from the 70s with avocado green appliances. The bathrooms needed updating. The basement smelled like decades of Ohio winters. But I could see exactly what it could become. Marcus and I walked through it 3 times before making an offer. The sellers accepted. We were 30 days from closing when everything fell apart. The loan officer called on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at work, checking on a 6-year-old recovering from surgery, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I stepped into the hallway to answer. Ms. Mitchell, this is Jennifer Kowalski from First Federal Mortgage. I'm afraid we have a problem with your application. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Your credit report came back with some concerns. Are you aware that you have multiple accounts in collections? Outstanding balances on several credit cards? I laughed. Actually laughed because it had to be a mistake. That's not possible. I've never missed a payment in my life. I don't even have credit cards. I use a debit card for everything. Silence on the other end. Then, Ms. Mitchell, according to our records, you have 7 credit card accounts opened in the last 3 years. Total outstanding balance of approximately $90,000. Several of these accounts are more than 90 days past due. The hallway tilted. I put my hand on the wall to steady myself. That's not me, I said. I didn't open those accounts. I'd recommend pulling your credit report immediately, and you may want to contact the police. If this is fraud. I don't remember the rest of that conversation. I don't remember finishing my shift or driving home or sitting on my couch staring at the wall. I remember pulling up my credit report on my laptop and watching my entire future collapse in a cascade of accounts I'd never opened, addresses I'd never lived at, purchases I'd never made. Nordstrom, Macy's, American Express, Discover, Capital One, 2 different Visa accounts, a store card from a furniture company in Cleveland. Cleveland. The furniture company was in Cleveland. I felt cold. Actually cold, like someone had injected ice water into my veins, because there was only one person I knew in Cleveland. Only one person who had access to my social security number, my mother's maiden name, my childhood address. All the security questions I'd used for years. Only one person who had been taking from me my entire life and never once faced consequences. I called my mother. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Heather? What's wrong? You sound strange. Has Amber said anything to you about money problems? Credit issues? Anything at all? Long pause. Too long. Why would you ask that? And I knew. Right then, I knew. Mom's voice had that careful quality it got when she was protecting Amber from something. The same voice from the birthday money. The same voice from the swim team. The same voice from every betrayal my sister had ever committed. Mom, what did Amber do? I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. Amber mentioned something about using your information to open a small account. Just temporarily. Just until she got back on her feet. She was going to pay it off before you ever noticed. She's been having a hard time at work. The commission structure changed and... Mom, how much? I don't know the exact... How much? She said maybe 30,000. But she's going to fix it, Heather. She promised. She just needs a little time. 30,000. My mother knew about $30,000 in fraudulent debt. A third of the actual total. And she hadn't warned me. Hadn't stopped it. Hadn't done anything except make excuses for the daughter who could do no wrong. I'm calling the police, I said. Heather, no, please. She's your sister. We're family. We can work this out internally. Your father and I can help pay it off, over time. Just don't... She stole my identity, Mom. She destroyed my credit. I just lost my dream house because of her. The house will still be there. You can buy it next year. Please, Heather. Think about what you're doing. If you press charges, Amber could go to jail. Her career would be ruined. Is that what you want? I looked around my apartment. At the wedding magazines on the coffee table. At the photos of Marcus and me on the fridge. At the printout of the bungalow I'd stuck to my vision board. The future I'd been building brick by brick. What I want, I said slowly, is for someone in this family to finally hold Amber accountable. If you won't do it, the police will. I hung up. Then I called the Columbus Police Department. The detective assigned to my case was named Maria Martinez. 40-something, practical, with the kind of eyes that had seen everything and the patience to see more. When I walked into her office with a folder full of evidence, credit reports, account statements I'd requested, a timeline of fraudulent purchases, she didn't flinch. This is comprehensive, she said, flipping through pages. Most victims come in with suspicions. You've done half my job for me. I've had a lot of practice documenting my sister's behavior. I just never thought I'd need it for something like this. Detective Martinez looked at me over the folder. Tell me about her. Walk me through the pattern. So I did. 26 years of theft condensed into an hour. The birthday money. The swim team. The boyfriend. The smaller things I hadn't even mentioned. Clothes that went missing. Money borrowed and never repaid. A laptop that got stolen from her car after I let her borrow it. Detective Martinez took notes. asked clarifying questions, never judged. "Here's what I need you to understand," she said when I finished. "Identity theft cases are complex. Your sister covered her tracks reasonably well. Different addresses, different phone numbers on the accounts. If you weren't diligent about checking your credit, you might not have caught this for years. But I did catch it. You did. And now we build a case." Building the case took 8 months. Detective Martinez walked me through every step, explaining what evidence we needed and why. "Identity theft is hard to prosecute," she told me during our third meeting. "Perpetrators often claim misunderstanding, shared accounts, implied consent. We need to prove not just that she used your information, but that she did it knowingly, without permission, with intent to defraud." We pulled records from every account: credit applications with forged signatures, IP addresses traced back to Amber's apartment, delivery confirmations for purchases sent to addresses I'd never lived at. The furniture store in Cleveland had security footage of Amber signing for a $3,000 sectional using my name. When Detective Martinez showed me that footage, I felt something crack inside me. There she was, my sister, casually forging my signature like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. 8 months of subpoenas and records requests and interviews with creditors. 8 months of watching my credit score sitting in the basement, flagged with fraud alerts, while I tried to explain to landlords and employers and anyone who pulled my background that no, I wasn't a deadbeat. I was a victim. 8 months of Marcus holding me while I cried, of sleepless nights, of therapy appointments to process the betrayal. The hardest part was the family pressure. Mom called weekly, sometimes daily, begging me to drop the charges. Dad called once, awkward and uncomfortable, saying he wished we could handle this privately. Amber herself never called. She'd hired a lawyer who told her not to contact me. But I heard through relatives that she was telling everyone I was mentally unstable, vindictive, jealous of her success. The narrative she was spinning was that I had willingly let her use my information, that this was a misunderstanding between sisters, that I was criminalizing normal family behavior. 6 months into the investigation, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Heather." Amber's voice, older than I remembered, tired. "Please, we need to talk." My lawyer advised me not to. I know what the lawyers say. I just need you to understand. I was desperate. The pharmaceutical company restructured and my commissions dried up overnight. I was about to lose my apartment. I didn't know what else to do. "So you stole my identity." "I was going to pay it back. I had a plan. I just needed time." $90,000, Amber. 90,000. I know. I know it got out of control. But I'm your sister. We grew up together. Doesn't that count for anything? I thought about the birthday money, the swim team, Derek. Every single time Amber had taken from me and expected forgiveness because we shared DNA. "It used to count for a lot," I said. "That's how you got away with it for so long. But not anymore. I'm done being the sister who forgives. I'm done being the bigger person. For once in your life, Amber, you're going to face consequences. If you do this, Mom and Dad will never forgive you." They never forgave me anyway. They just needed me to stay quiet. I hung up, blocked her number, kept moving forward. The arrest happened on a gray November morning. Detective Martinez had called the night before to give me the option of being there. "You don't have to watch," she said. "Some victims find it cathartic. Others find it painful. Your choice." "I'll be there," I said without hesitation. "I need to see it." We drove to Amber's building together, an unmarked car following 2 patrol units. I sat in the passenger seat, watching the familiar streets of Cleveland pass by, thinking about how many times I'd driven these same roads to visit my sister like everything was normal. How many brunches, how many holiday gatherings, how many times I'd sat across from her while she was actively destroying my financial future. The officers knocked on her door. I waited in the car, watching through the windshield. When Amber opened the door, she was already performing. The innocent smile, the confused tilt of her head, the voice dripping with sweetness as she tried to convince them this was all a mistake. "She won't press charges. We're family, right?" That's when I got out of the car, walked up the driveway, stood behind the officers. "Wrong," I said. I watched her face crumble, watched the mask slip. For one brief moment, I saw the real Amber, the one who had never believed there would be consequences, who had spent 30 years taking whatever she wanted because no one ever stopped her. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "You'll regret this," she hissed as they led her to the patrol car. "You're destroying this family." "No," I said. "You did that a long time ago. I'm just finally admitting it." The trial took 4 months. Held in the Franklin County Courthouse, a building I'd driven past hundreds of times without ever imagining I'd spend weeks inside it, watching my family tear itself apart over the witness stand. Amber's lawyer tried every strategy: diminished capacity, financial coercion, even an attempt to claim I had given her permission to use my accounts. He painted her as a desperate woman driven to extremes by economic hardship, a loving sister who had simply borrowed too much and gotten in over her head. He made me sound vindictive, jealous, the bitter younger sister who couldn't handle her sibling's success. Detective Martinez's investigation was bulletproof. The prosecution presented receipts, signatures, IP addresses, a trail of evidence that proved beyond doubt that Amber had systematically stolen my identity and used it to fund a lifestyle she couldn't afford. My parents testified for her, their own daughter, the victim, and they testified for the perpetrator. Mom cried on the stand about what a good person Amber was, how this was out of character, how she was sure it was just a cry for help. Dad talked about family values and second chances. Neither of them looked at me. I testified too. Sat in that witness box and laid out 26 years of theft, culminating in the $93,000 that had cost me my dream house, my peace of mind, my faith in family. I didn't cry. I stated facts. I answered questions. I let the evidence speak. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Guilty on all counts. Amber was sentenced to 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, and full restitution. Not the jail time I'd half expected, but consequences nonetheless. Real, documented, unavoidable consequences. The first she'd ever faced in her life. After the verdict, I walked out of the courthouse into the spring sunshine. Marcus was waiting by the car. He wrapped his arms around me and held on. "It's over," he said. "This part is," I agreed, "but there's still the cleanup." The cleanup took 2 years. 2 years of working with credit agencies, disputing fraudulent accounts, rebuilding my score point by point. 2 years of letters and phone calls and documentation. 2 years of explaining to every potential lender that no, I wasn't a credit risk. I was a fraud victim. And here was the court documentation to prove it. Marcus stayed through all of it. We got married in a small ceremony at the courthouse, saving money for the house we both still wanted. We lived in our apartment, pinched pennies, watched my credit score slowly climb from the wreckage. 3 years after the trial, I got a notification from a real estate app I'd never deleted. New listing in German Village. I clicked on it automatically, expecting nothing, just a habit I'd never broken. It was the house, the 1920s bungalow with the hardwood floors and the oak tree in the backyard. The house I'd lost because of Amber. It was back on the market. The previous buyers had renovated and then gotten divorced, I learned later. They were selling at a loss just to be done with each other. The price was $40,000 less than it had been 3 years ago. I called the listing agent that afternoon, scheduled a showing for the next day, walked through the same rooms I'd walked through years before, touching the same door frames, looking out the same windows at the same oak tree. The kitchen had been updated. The bathrooms were beautiful. Everything I'd imagined doing, someone else had done. I want to make an offer, I told the agent. Full asking price. Conventional loan. I can close in 30 days. This time, the mortgage went through. My credit score was 740, rebuilt from ashes through patience and persistence. The underwriter didn't flag a single concern. We closed on a Friday in October. Marcus and I stood in the empty living room, boxes piled in the corners, late afternoon light streaming through the original windows. I thought about everything it had taken to get here. The theft, the police reports, the trial, the years of rebuilding, the sister I no longer spoke to, the parents who had chosen her over me. Was it worth it? Marcus asked, reading my expression. I looked around the room, at the hardwood floors I'd dreamed about, at the fireplace I'd imagined decorating for Christmas, at the future I'd refused to let Amber steal. Every single day, I said. Amber finished her probation 6 months ago. She's still making restitution payments, will be for years. She moved to Cincinnati after the trial, couldn't stand being in Cleveland where everyone knew what she'd done. From what I hear through distant relatives, she works in retail now, a fraction of her previous salary, rebuilding her life the way I had to rebuild mine. My parents and I are cordial but distant. They came to my wedding, sat in the back row, left before the reception. Mom sends birthday cards with checks I don't cash. Dad calls on holidays, conversations lasting under 5 minutes. We've never discussed the trial. We probably never will. Some bridges don't get rebuilt. Some just stay burned. I'm 30 now. I live in the house I almost lost. The kitchen has marble countertops and stainless steel appliances, upgrades the previous owners made that I never could have afforded. The oak tree in the backyard drops acorns every fall that I collect in a basket, thinking about the children who might play under those branches someday. Marcus and I are talking about having children, filling those 3 bedrooms with the family we'll build ourselves, not the one we were born into, the one we choose. The neighborhood knows me now. The couple next door brings us tomatoes from their garden. The elderly woman across the street waves every morning when I leave for work. I've become part of something here, roots growing down into soil that feels like mine. There's a frame on my mantle. Inside is the first credit report I pulled after the case was closed, the one showing all fraudulent accounts removed, my score climbing back toward respectability. Next to it is a photo from closing day, Marcus and me standing on the porch of our house, keys in hand, smiling like we'd won something. We had won something. We'd won back everything Amber tried to take. Some things are meant to wait for you. This house waited 3 years while I rebuilt what my sister destroyed. It waited through the police reports and the trial and the endless paperwork. It waited through the family rupture and the sleepless nights, and the moments when I wondered if I'd done the right thing. And then, when I was finally ready, it came back. Right when I needed it. Right when I could claim it. Amber had always taken things. My birthday money. My spot on the swim team. My high school boyfriend. And finally, my identity. My name. My credit. My future. But here's what she couldn't take. My refusal to let it stand. My willingness to press charges when everyone told me not to. My ability to rebuild while she was busy making excuses. She took my name, and I took it back. She took my credit, and I rebuilt it better. She tried to take my house, and 3 years later, I'm sitting in the living room writing this story. She won't press charges. We're family, right? Wrong. Family isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's not permission to take whatever you want and expect forgiveness because of shared DNA. Family, real family, is people who protect you, not people who exploit you. And if the family you were born into won't do that, you find the family that will. I found mine. I found Marcus, who held me through every court date. I found Detective Martinez, who believed me when my own parents didn't. I found a house that waited for me, and a future that Amber couldn't touch no matter how hard she tried. If your family is taking from you, not just money, but your peace, your boundaries, your sense of self, you don't have to let them. If someone has stolen from you and everyone's telling you to keep quiet for the sake of family harmony, you don't have to listen. You're allowed to press charges. You're allowed to demand consequences. You're allowed to choose yourself over people who have never chosen you. Tell me in the comments, has anyone ever stolen from you and expected forgiveness because you were related? Did you press charges or stay silent? I read every story. Subscribe for more stories about people who refused to be victims, who chose justice over family pressure, and who rebuilt their lives brick by brick after someone tried to tear them down. Some people take, some people rebuild. I know which one I am now. And I'm writing this from the house my sister tried to steal from me. It feels like home.